The stars had never seemed so bright to humanity until the day the Galactic Council arrived. It was 2224 when Earth's first faster-than-light ship, the Endeavour, stumbled into Council space near Alpha Centauri. The aliens didn't attack. Instead, they welcomed the humans with open arms and curious eyes. 23 years had passed since that historic meeting, and Earth had become a proud member of the galactic community. Commander Sarah Chen stood in the council chamber on the orbital station above Keras 7, watching the holographic display of the mining colony below. The planet was rich in helium-3 and rare minerals that powered half the council's technology. It was also under attack. The Vrix Empire, an insectoid race from the Outer Rim, had declared the mining rights invalid and sent their fleet to claim it by force. Sarah had been Earth's chief ambassador for 5 years now. She had gray streaks in her black hair that hadn't been there when she started. The job aged people fast. Beside her stood Admiral Marcus Webb, a tall man with weathered features and calculating eyes. His uniform bore medals from a dozen peacekeeping missions across Council space. "The Vrix fleet outnumbers us 3-1, Marcus said quietly, studying the tactical readout. "They have heavier ships and better shields. This isn't going to be easy." Sarah nodded. She had already read the reports. The Council was asking humanity to lead the defense of Keras 7. Again. It seemed like humans were always the ones called when the fighting got serious. The Thalosians had better weapons. The Krix had more ships. The Yavon had advanced shield technology. But when the Council needed soldiers who would actually fight and die for a cause, they called the humans. "We'll send 40% of our fleet," Sarah said, making her decision. "That's 1,200 ships and 80,000 Marines." Marcus raised an eyebrow. 40%? "Sarah, that's almost half our entire military. What if something happens at home?" "The Council asked for our help," Sarah replied. "We honor our commitments. That's what makes us different from the others." The decision was made. Within 2 weeks, human ships from across known space converged on Keras 7. The humans set up defensive positions around the planet, while the Vrix fleet gathered at the system's edge. Other Council species contributed too, but their numbers were small. The Thalosians sent 50 ships, the Krix sent 100, the Yevon sent only 20, claiming they needed to protect their own borders. The battle for Keras 7 began on a Tuesday morning, Earth time. The Vrix came in waves, their ships shaped like massive beetles with glowing green engines. They fired plasma weapons that could melt through hull plating in seconds. Human ships danced between the attacks, using speed and maneuverability to compensate for weaker armor. Captain James Rodriguez commanded the destroyer Phoenix when the Vrix broke through the outer defensive line. His ship took 3 direct hits, killing 17 crew members instantly. But James didn't retreat. He pushed his damaged vessel forward, ramming it into a Vrix cruiser twice his ship's size. The explosion took out both vessels and cleared a path for the human carriers behind him. The battle lasted 6 days. Human casualties mounted steadily. Sarah watched the reports come in from the command center, her heart breaking with each new list of the dead. The other Council species rotated their ships out regularly, keeping their forces fresh. But the humans had no reinforcements. They fought with what they had until they won or died. Admiral Webb led the final assault personally. His flagship, the Indomitable, charged straight into the Vrix command formation. Human Marines boarded 3 Vrix capital ships simultaneously, fighting through corridors filled with hostile insectoids. The fighting was brutal in close quarters. Humans lost 5 Marines for every 1 Vrix soldier, but they kept pushing forward. On the 6th day, the Vrix withdrew. They had lost half their fleet. The humans had lost 60% of theirs. 4,000 human ships had entered the battle. Only 1,600 limped away when it ended. 32,000 human soldiers had died. The mining colony was saved. The Council declared victory. President Zal then, a serpentine creature with scales that shimmered blue and green, gave a speech praising the collective effort and the unity of Council species. He mentioned humanity once, near the end, thanking them for their contribution. Sarah sat in her quarters after the ceremony, staring at the casualty reports. Something felt wrong. The battle had been harder than it should have been. Multiple times human positions had been attacked right after they moved, as if the Vrix knew exactly where they would be. Intelligence reports that should have arrived didn't. Supply convoys were ambushed along routes that were supposed to be secret. Marcus visited her that evening. His uniform was clean, but his eyes were tired. He had attended too many funerals in the past week. We held them off, he said, pouring himself a drink from Sarah's private stock. But it cost us everything. Did you see the Thelosian casualties? 47 dead. 47. We lost 32,000 and they lost 47. They weren't in the heavy fighting, Sarah said. They held the outer perimeter. No, Marcus shook his head. I reviewed the tactical logs. They were supposed to reinforce our left flank on day 3. They never showed up. That's when we lost the Yamato and the Kiev. 2 carriers and 8,000 crew gone because our allies didn't appear. Sarah felt cold. You think it was deliberate? I think we're being used, Marcus said bluntly. I think the Council sees us as convenient soldiers. We're young, aggressive, and stupid enough to die for their causes. Before Sarah could respond, her terminal beeped. An incoming message, heavily encrypted and routed through a dozen relays to hide its origin. The sender was listed as unknown. Sarah hesitated, then opened it. Marcus moved behind her to read over her shoulder. The file contained communications logs between Council members. Sarah's translation software worked overtime, converting alien languages into readable text. What she read made her blood run cold. The messages were between President Zalven and the Krix ambassador. They discussed the human problem. They talked about humanity's rapid expansion, how Earth had colonized 15 systems in 20 years. They called humans aggressive primitives and future threats. They discussed solutions. One message made Sarah's hands shake. It was from Zalven to multiple council members, sent 3 weeks before the Vrix attacked Kara 7. The Vrix present an opportunity. Human forces will defend the colony. We ensure high casualties through selective intelligence sharing. The Vrix eliminate Earth's military capacity. We mediate peace afterward and divide resources. The human problem resolves itself. Marcus grabbed the edge of the desk, his knuckles white. They betrayed us. They fed our positions to the Vrix. They wanted us to die. Sarah scrolled through more files. Battle plans that showed human ship movements sent to Vrix contacts. Warnings about human defensive preparations. Even suggestions on which human vessels to target first. 12 of the 15 council species were involved. Only 3 minor species had been kept ignorant of the conspiracy. 32,000 humans had died. Not in a fair fight, but in a deliberate massacre orchestrated by the very allies they had died to protect. Sarah stood up slowly. Her face was calm, but her eyes burned with cold fury. She saved the files to a secure drive and encrypted them with Earth's highest security protocols. Get me a direct line to Earth Command, she said quietly. Priority Alpha. I need to speak with the Assembly immediately. Marcus nodded and left to make the arrangements. Sarah looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, in one of those points of light, the council members were celebrating their victory. They thought they had won. They thought humanity would never discover their betrayal. They were wrong. Sarah Chen had spent 5 years building relationships with these aliens. She had studied their cultures, learned their languages, and negotiated treaties. She knew how they thought. She knew their weaknesses, and now she knew exactly how to make them pay. The encrypted files took 3 days to fully decrypt. Sarah Chen worked with Earth's best intelligence analysts in a secure facility beneath Geneva. The room was small and windowless, filled with holographic displays showing alien text and communication logs. Each new file they opened revealed another layer of betrayal. Dr. Michael Torres, Earth's chief xenolinguist, translated the final batch of messages. His hands trembled as he worked. This one is from 8 months ago, he said. The Yevon suggested using a biological weapon on human ships. They have something that targets mammalian respiratory systems. Sal then rejected it as too obvious. Sarah felt sick. They had considered biological warfare. Against allies. Against friends. Against people who had died protecting them. How many species were involved? She asked. 12 confirmed, Michael replied. The Thelosians, Krix, Yevon, and 9 others. Only the Thelas, Porvin, and Kektar appear uninvolved. They're small species with limited power in the Council. The evidence was overwhelming. The Council had planned humanity's destruction for over 2 years. They had carefully orchestrated the Kara 7 crisis, ensuring maximum human casualties while preserving their own forces. Every human death had been calculated. Every sacrifice had been manipulated. The worst part was reading their reasoning. The Council feared human expansion. In 23 years, Earth had gone from primitive rockets to faster-than-light travel. Human colonies were spreading across the galaxy. Human population was growing exponentially. The council saw humanity's potential and decided to eliminate the threat before it became too strong. Sarah assembled the evidence into a comprehensive report. She included communication logs, battle analysis showing impossible Vrix accuracy, and financial records proving the council had been funding the Vrix Empire. The evidence was irrefutable. She presented it to Earth's United Assembly the following Monday. The chamber fell silent as representatives watched the presentation. When it ended, the silence stretched for nearly a minute. Then chaos erupted. "This is an act of war," someone shouted. "We should withdraw from the council immediately. Those bastards killed our children." The speaker called for order, pounding her gavel until the chamber quieted. Sarah stood at the podium waiting. She knew what needed to happen next. "Ambassador Chen," the speaker said carefully, "what do you recommend?" "We recall all ambassadors immediately," Sarah replied. "We make this evidence public. We demand justice, and if they refuse, ask General Patricia Okonkwo, Earth's military commander. Then we take it." The assembly voted unanimously. Within hours, every human ambassador in council space received orders to return home. The evidence went public across all human networks and was broadcast to every council world. The galaxy learned the truth about the Keras 7 conspiracy. Admiral Marcus Webb was still at Keras 7 with what remained of the human fleet. 1,600 ships damaged and undermanned, surrounded by thousands of allied vessels from other council species. When the news broke, those allied ships began changing their formations. They were boxing the humans in. Marcus watched the tactical display with growing concern. "They're preparing to disarm us," his tactical officer reported. 12 council battle groups are moving into position around our fleet. On Earth, Sarah received an urgent communication from President Zalden. His serpentine face filled her screen, and his voice carried false concern. "Ambassador Chen, this evidence is clearly falsified," he said smoothly. "Malicious actors seeking to divide the council. We must work together to find who created these lies." "The encryption keys are council issue," Sarah replied coldly. "The communication nodes are registered to council vessels. The financial transfers are documented in your own banking systems. This isn't fake, Zalden. This is your crime." Zalden's expression hardened. "Humanity will continue its obligations under council treaty. Your fleet will remain at Keras 7 and will submit to inspection. Any attempt to leave will be considered an act of aggression." "You betrayed us," Sarah said quietly. "You murdered 32,000 humans. And now you threaten us?" "We maintained order," Zalden hissed. "Humanity is young, aggressive, and dangerous. You expand too quickly. You breed too fast. You would have threatened council stability within a generation. We did what was necessary. You declared war on us while pretending to be our friends. We eliminated a future problem. Your fleet is surrounded. Your colonies are isolated. Earth itself is far from council protection. I suggest you accept reality and submit to council authority." "The alternative is unpleasant," Sarah ended the call. Her hands were steady, but her heart pounded. Around the world, billions of humans watched the broadcast. They had heard everything. They knew the council planned to disarm their fleet and likely eliminate Earth's military capacity entirely. Earth's assembly convened an emergency session. The question wasn't whether to fight back. It was how General Okonkwo presented military options. "We're outnumbered 10-1 in council space. Our fleet at Keras 7 is surrounded. If we fight conventionally, we lose." "Then we don't fight conventionally," said Director James Walsh, head of Earth's intelligence service. "For 23 years, we've been building infrastructure across council space. We've installed communication systems, power generators, security networks, and medical facilities. We designed and built most of the council's modern technology." Sarah looked at him sharply. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we prepared for this possibility," Walsh replied. "After our first contact with the council, some of us worried about dependence on alien goodwill. We took precautions." He activated a holographic display showing council space. Thousands of locations lit up in red. "Every piece of human-built technology has backdoors. Every system we installed can be controlled or disabled remotely. Every gift we gave has a hidden purpose." The assembly stared in shock. "You compromised council infrastructure?" the speaker asked. "We prepared for betrayal," Walsh corrected. It seemed paranoid at the time. Now it seems prudent. Sarah felt something cold settle in her chest. An idea was forming. A terrible, perfect idea. "Protocol, Samson," she said quietly. The room went silent. Everyone knew what Protocol Samson meant. It was Earth's ultimate contingency plan, developed after humanity's first encounter with alien duplicity. If Earth was ever threatened with extinction, Protocol Samson would ensure the threat was eliminated. "Are you serious?" General Okonkwo asked. "That protocol gives us control over Council infrastructure. Life support, weapons, shields, engines, everything. We would effectively hold the entire Council hostage." "They tried to kill us," Sarah said flatly. "They murdered 32,000 of our people through treachery. They're preparing to disarm our fleet and leave us defenseless. What choice do we have?" The debate lasted 2 hours. Representatives argued passionately on both sides. Some said activating Protocol Samson would make Earth the aggressor. Others said it was justified self-defense. Some worried about Galactic War. Others pointed out the war had already started. Earth just hadn't been fighting back. In the end, the vote was close but decisive. Earth would activate Protocol Samson. Sarah connected to Admiral Webb's flagship. Marcus appeared on screen, his face drawn with exhaustion. Behind him, alarms were sounding. "Sarah, we're about to be boarded. Council ships are demanding we surrender our weapons. Marcus, are your people ready?" The Admiral's expression changed. He understood what she was asking. "Yes, all ships have received the Samson protocols. We're just waiting on authorization." Sarah looked at the assembly. The speaker nodded. General Okonkwo gave a thumbs up. Director Walsh simply smiled. Sarah took a deep breath. This moment would define humanity's future. They would either survive as a free species or be subjugated by those they had trusted as friends. "Admiral Marcus Webb, this is Ambassador Sarah Chen. Authorization code, Chen Alpha 1. I hereby activate Protocol Samson." "Execute immediately," Marcus saluted. "Confirmed. Protocol Samson is active. May God have mercy on us all." The transmission ended. Sarah collapsed into her chair. Around her, the assembly sat in stunned silence. They had just declared war on the Galactic Council. There was no going back now. In orbit above Keras 7, human ships received the signal. In human colonies across Council space, civilians prepared for what came next. In every station, relay, and system humans had helped build over 23 years, dormant code began to activate. The Galactic Council had tried to eliminate humanity. They were about to learn why that was a mistake. Protocol Samson had been created 15 years earlier by a paranoid engineer named Dr. Rebecca Stone. She had been part of Earth's first delegation to Council space and had noticed something troubling. The aliens were friendly, yes, but they were also condescending. They treated humans like clever children, not equals. Rebecca worried about what would happen if that friendship turned to hostility. So she built in safeguards. Every human-designed system had hidden code buried deep in its operating software. Every piece of human technology contained backdoors that could be activated remotely. For 15 years, these backdoors had sat dormant, unknown to the Council species who relied on human engineering. Now, across the galaxy, Protocol Samson activated. At Keras 7, Admiral Marcus Webb watched his tactical display as 12 Council battle groups closed in on the human fleet. His 1,600 damaged ships were surrounded by over 5,000 alien vessels. The Council ships were moving into boarding positions, preparing to take control of human vessels by force. "Sir, they're hailing us again," his communications officer reported. "Demanding we power down weapons and shields." Marcus smiled grimly. "Tell them we're complying." Across the human fleet, ships began to power down. Weapons went offline. Shields flickered and died. Engine signatures dropped to minimal power. To the Council forces, it looked like humanity was surrendering. President Zal then watched from his flagship, satisfied. The humans were finally accepting reality. They were outgunned, outnumbered, and out of options. Within hours, the human fleet would be disarmed, and Earth would be forced to accept Council terms. The human problem would be solved peacefully. "Prepare boarding parties," he ordered. "I want human command crews removed and replaced with our people. These ships will be valuable additions to Council forces once properly crewed." Then everything went wrong. The Council ships suddenly lost power. Shields collapsed. Weapons systems shut down. Engine cores went into emergency shutdown. Across Zalden's flagship, alarms began screaming. The lights flickered and died, replaced by dim emergency lighting. "What's happening?" Zalden demanded. "Unknown, sir," his chief engineer reported, panic in her voice. "All systems are failing simultaneously. It's like someone is shutting us down from the inside." That's exactly what was happening. Every council ship at Kara 7 had been built with human assistance. Human engineers had installed the power systems, navigation computers, and weapons controls. Those systems were now refusing to work. Across council space, the same thing was happening. On the Thalosian homeworld, the orbital defense grid went dark. On Crix Prime, the planetary shield generator shut down. On the Yevon colony of Hester 9, life support systems began cycling into minimum power mode. Every station, relay, generator, and system that humans had built or helped build was simultaneously compromised, and humans had built a lot. For 23 years, Earth had been the Council's most enthusiastic engineers. They had volunteered for every infrastructure project, installed systems on hundreds of worlds, and designed the communication network that held Council space together. All of it had back doors. All of it was now under human control. At Kara 7, the human fleet suddenly came back to life. But they didn't just power up to normal levels. Every ship's power core had been slowly overcharging while pretending to shut down. They had been playing dead while building up energy reserves to dangerous levels. The human ships burst into motion with shocking speed. Marcus had planned this carefully. His captains knew exactly what to do. All ships execute pattern Delta, Marcus ordered calmly. The human fleet scattered in a perfectly coordinated dance. Ships that had seemed dead moments ago were now moving at full acceleration, weapons charging, shields at maximum. They weren't attacking yet. They didn't need to. The Council ships were helpless targets drifting without power. Marcus opened a channel to every Council vessel in the system. This is Admiral Marcus Webb of Earth. Your ships are currently disabled. Your weapons are offline. Your shields are down. We have complete control of your systems and we can destroy you at will. He paused, letting that sink in. However, we won't, not yet. You see, we're not like you. We don't murder allies through treachery, but we will defend ourselves. Zal then appeared on the communication channel, his serpentine face twisted with rage. This is an act of war. You've attacked Council forces. No, Marcus replied coldly. You attacked us, at Kara 7 when you fed our positions to the Vrix. When you deliberately got 32,000 humans killed. We're just responding to your declaration of war. We're just finally fighting back. On Earth, Sarah Chen was broadcasting to every Council world. Human communication satellites installed as gifts over the years were now transmitting her message across the galaxy. Every species would hear her words. People of the Council, Sarah began, her voice calm but hard. For 23 years, humanity has served loyally. We built your stations, protected your colonies, and died in your wars. We asked only for friendship and equality in return. She displayed the evidence. Communication logs, financial records, battle analysis. Everything proving the Council's betrayal. Instead, you conspired to murder us. You used us as cannon fodder while plotting our extinction. 32,000 humans died at Kara 7 because you fed our positions to the enemy. That ends now. The display shifted to show human forces across Council space. We have control of your infrastructure. Your life support, your weapons, your defenses, all of it was built with human help. All of it has safeguards that we can activate. Sarah let that sink in. Every Council world was suddenly aware of how dependent they had become on human technology. We could destroy you, Sarah continued. We could shut down life support on your stations, disable your defenses, and leave you helpless. But we won't, not yet, because unlike you, we're offering you a choice. The terms appeared on screens across the galaxy. Full reparations for human losses. Surrender of all Council members involved in the conspiracy. Immediate cessation of Council authority over human space. Access to all Council military technology. Public apology and monuments to human dead. You have 72 hours to comply, Sarah said. If you refuse, we will consider ourselves at war. And you've already seen what happens when you go to war with humanity. The broadcast ended. Across Council space, panic erupted. Species that had felt secure in their power suddenly realized they were vulnerable. The humans they had dismissed as primitive had been preparing for this possibility for years. On Kara 7, Zal then tried desperately to regain control of his ship. His engineers worked frantically, but every attempt to override human code failed. The humans had access to the lowest levels of the system architecture. They could see everything, control everything. How is this possible? Zal then hissed. We have the best encryption in the galaxy. Sir, his chief engineer said quietly. We got our encryption from humanity. They designed our secure communication protocols. They built our firewalls. The realization hit Zal then like a physical blow. The humans had been inside council systems from the beginning. Every gift of technology had been a potential weapon. Every helpful engineer had been a potential saboteur. Humanity had played the long game, and the council had been blind to it. Marcus Webb watched his tactical display with satisfaction. The council forces at Kara 7 were completely neutralized. They couldn't fight, couldn't run, couldn't even properly communicate. Their ships were floating debris, kept alive only because humans chose not to shut down life support. His second-in-command, Commander Lisa Park, approached. "Sir, we're receiving surrender requests from over 100 council ships. They're asking for instructions." "Tell them to maintain current position and power down weapons," Marcus replied. "Any ship that tries to escape or attack will be disabled." "We're not here to murder anyone, but we will defend ourselves." Lisa hesitated. "Sir, what if they call our bluff?" "We can shut down their systems, but can we really hold this position if the Council mobilizes their full fleet from the homeworlds?" Marcus smiled coldly. "Then we shut down their homeworld defenses and see how brave they feel with orbital bombardment platforms targeting their capitals." "They tried to make us prey, Commander. They forgot that humans were predators first." Across the galaxy, the three innocent species, Thelis, Porvin, and Kektar, quickly released statements condemning the conspiracy. They provided their own evidence showing they had been kept ignorant of the plot. They requested to negotiate separately with humanity. The other species scrambled to respond. Some tried defiance, claiming human actions were terrorism. Others tried negotiation, offering partial reparations. A few attempted to restore their systems, but human control was too deep. Every attempt to override the human code failed. On Earth, the public reaction was fierce. Humanity had been betrayed by those they considered friends. 32,000 soldiers had died in a rigged battle. Now for the first time, humans held the power. The question was what they would do with it. Sarah sat in her office watching reports flow in from across council space. She had 72 hours before the deadline expired. 72 hours to see if the council would accept peace or choose war. She thought about the dead. 32,000 names. 32,000 families destroyed. 32,000 futures erased. The council had made humanity into warriors. Now they would. The 72-hour deadline passed without compliance. President Zal then addressed the council in an emergency session broadcast across all member worlds. His serpentine form coiled around the speaker's platform as he delivered his response to humanity's demands. "The council does not negotiate with terrorists," Zal then declared, his voice dripping with disdain. "Humanity has revealed its true nature. They are aggressive, dangerous, and unfit for civilized society. We will not bow to their threats." Sarah Chen watched the broadcast from Earth Command. Around her, military and political leaders waited for her response. General Okonkwo stood ready with fleet deployments. Director Walsh had intelligence assets prepared across council space. The United Assembly had given her full authority to act. "He's calling our bluff," General Okonkwo observed. "He doesn't believe we'll actually fight." "Then we prove him wrong," Sarah replied coldly. She opened a secure channel to Admiral Webb. "Marcus, you are authorized to engage. Show them we're serious." At Kara 7, Marcus had been waiting for this order. His fleet had spent 3 days in standoff with the disabled council forces. Now the waiting was over. "All ships target council military vessels only," Marcus ordered. "Precision strikes on weapons and engines. We disable, not destroy. I want survivors to tell the story." The human fleet opened fire. It wasn't a battle. It was a demonstration. Council ships, still crippled by Protocol Samson, couldn't defend themselves. Human weapons carved through armor, destroying weapons batteries and engine cores with surgical precision. Marcus made sure every shot was calculated, every target chosen carefully. Within 30 minutes, every council military vessel at Kara 7 was completely disabled. Not destroyed, but rendered permanently unable to fight. The human fleet hadn't lost a single ship. Marcus broadcast across all channels. "Council forces have been neutralized. No civilians were harmed. This is the price of betrayal. This is what happens when you underestimate humanity." But Zal then wasn't done. From his homeworld, he activated secret plans that even most council members didn't know about. He had been in communication with the Vrix Empire throughout the crisis. The conspiracy went deeper than anyone realized. "The Vrix will help us," Zal then told his inner circle. We promised them Earth's resources after the Kara 7 battle. They believe humans are weak. They'll see this as an opportunity. The Vrix Empire mobilized. Over 3,000 ships began moving toward Council space. Their queen commander had been promised an entire species to enslave, a whole planet of resources to plunder. The fact that humans had somehow defeated Council forces didn't concern her. The Vrix had been raiding and conquering for centuries. Humans were just another prey species. Earth's intelligence network detected the Vrix mobilization within hours. Sarah received the report with grim satisfaction. She had expected this. They think we're still the same humans who barely survived Kara 7, she told her command staff. They don't understand what's changed. What has changed? Asked Ambassador Liu, Earth's representative to the Asian Union. At Kara 7, we were fighting to protect Council worlds, Sarah explained. We followed Council rules of engagement. We tried to minimize casualties. We held back. Her eyes turned cold. Now we're fighting for our survival. All restrictions are off. The Vrix fleet arrived in Council space expecting confused, frightened humans. Instead, they found a unified military force that had been preparing for exactly this scenario. Admiral Webb had pulled back from Kara 7, leaving the disabled Council ships behind. His fleet now controlled key strategic positions throughout the sector. The Vrix Queen commander broadcast her demands. Humans will surrender immediately. You will provide coordinates for Earth and all colony worlds. You will submit to Vrix authority. Refusal means extinction. Marcus laughed when he heard this. Actually laughed. Send her my response, he told his communications officer. The message was simple. Come and take them. The Vrix charged forward, confident in their superior numbers. They had 3,000 ships. The humans had barely 1,600. The math seemed clear. What the Vrix didn't know was that humanity had been studying them for years. Every battle at Kara 7 had been analyzed. Every Vrix tactic, formation, and strategy had been documented. Humans knew how the Vrix thought, how they fought, how they made decisions. Marcus led them into a nebula. The Prometheus Nebula was known for sensor interference. Council species avoided fighting there because their ships relied heavily on long-range sensors. Human ships were different. Earth's engineers had developed sensors that could penetrate the nebula interference. They had been preparing this trap for months, just waiting for the right moment. The Vrix fleet plunged into the nebula in pursuit of the human forces. Their sensors immediately went haywire. They couldn't see more than a few thousand kilometers in any direction. They tried to maintain formation, but the nebula's currents dispersed their fleet. Human ships, guided by their specialized sensors, picked off Vrix vessels one by one. A destroyer would appear from the nebula clouds, fire a devastating salvo, and disappear before the Vrix could respond. Human fighters darted through the interference, their pilots using the nebula as cover. Captain Sarah Kim commanded the stealth frigate Shadow Dancer. Her ship was designed for exactly this kind of warfare. She led her squadron deep into the nebula, hunting Vrix capital ships. Contact bearing 270, her sensor officer reported. Vrix battlecruiser isolated from its fleet. Sarah moved in silently. The Shadow Dancer's stealth systems made it nearly invisible even in normal space. In the nebula, it was a ghost. She positioned her ship directly beneath the Vrix battlecruiser and fired every torpedo she had. The Vrix ship exploded before it even knew it was under attack. Across the nebula, similar scenes played out. The Vrix fleet was being torn apart by an enemy they couldn't see. Their queen commander tried to rally her forces, but human jamming disrupted her communications. Every order was delayed or lost. The Vrix formation fell into chaos, then the trap closed. Admiral Webb had positioned his main fleet at the nebula's far exit. As Vrix ships fled the chaos inside, they emerged directly into human firing lines. Marcus's heavy cruisers were waiting with charged weapons. The slaughter was efficient and brutal. Human ships had no mercy for the Vrix. These were the same aliens who had been paid to massacre humans at Kara 7. These were the creatures who had demanded humanity's surrender and enslavement. The humans showed them exactly what enslaved prey looked like when it fought back. Of the 3,000 Vrix ships that entered the nebula, fewer than 400 escaped. The Vrix Queen commander was not among the survivors. Her flagship was destroyed by a coordinated strike from 5 human destroyers. The battle had taken 6 hours. Human casualties were minimal, less than 200 dead. The Vrix Empire had lost its primary fleet and its leader. The survivors fled back to their territory, carrying news of their devastating defeat. But humanity wasn't done. Sarah Chen had been coordinating simultaneous operations across Council space. While the Vrix died in the nebula, human forces were moving on Council homeworlds. The Thalosian government, one of the primary conspirators, woke to find human ships in orbit. Their planetary defenses were offline, courtesy of Protocol Samson. Human Marines landed at their capital and arrested the leadership without firing a shot. The Thalosian people, many of whom hadn't known about the conspiracy, didn't resist. They watched their leaders taken into custody for war crimes. The same scene played out on 8 other worlds. Human forces moved swiftly and precisely. They targeted only the leadership, only those directly involved in the conspiracy. Civilian populations were left alone. Human soldiers didn't loot, didn't terrorize, didn't seek revenge against innocent people. This restraint was strategic. Sarah wanted the galaxy to see that humanity was fighting for justice, not conquest. They were punishing those responsible, not entire species. Gal then watched his carefully built conspiracy collapse around him. 8 council leaders arrested, the Vrix fleet destroyed, human forces controlling key locations across council space, and worst of all, public opinion was turning against the council. The evidence Sarah had released was damning. Citizens of Council worlds saw the communications proving their leaders had conspired to commit genocide. They saw how humans had been betrayed while defending Council colonies. Many were horrified. Protests erupted on dozens of worlds. The Thalos, Porvin, and Kektar, the 3 innocent species, formally withdrew from the Council and requested alliance with humanity. Other species began privately reaching out to Earth, offering to turn on Zal then in exchange for favorable terms. Zal then made one final gambit. He gathered the remaining loyal Council forces and moved on Earth itself. If he could threaten humanity's homeworld, he might force a negotiated settlement. His fleet, over 2,000 ships, entered the Sol system prepared for a decisive battle. They found Earth's orbital defenses fully operational and heavily reinforced. The lunar military base had quadrupled in size. Mars had deployed its fleet. The asteroid belt had been converted into a massive weapons platform. And waiting in formation around Earth were 5,000 human ships, more than anyone had realized humanity possessed. It's not possible, Zal then hifaced T. 1 year after the war ended, Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of Karis Memorial Station. The rebuilt facility orbited the mining colony where 32,000 humans had died. Below, on the planet's largest continent, a monument stretched for kilometers. It was made of quantum crystal that would last millions of years. Every name was engraved there, glowing softly in the sunlight. The station itself was a symbol of the new order. It wasn't a military base or a fortress. It was a hospital, a university, and a diplomatic center. Species from across the galaxy came here to learn, heal, and talk. But they also came to remember what happened when trust was betrayed. The Galactic Council was gone, dissolved by unanimous vote 6 months after the war. In its place stood the Terran Accord, a new federation built on different principles. Membership was voluntary. Rules applied equally to all species. And humanity, the youngest species, held the position of first guardian. Sarah was no longer an ambassador. She was Secretary General of the Terran Accord, elected by representatives from 23 species. It was exhausting work, but she believed in it. They were building something better than what came before. Admiral Marcus Webb had retired from military service. His memoir, The Price of Trust, had become required reading in military academies across human space. He spent his time now teaching young officers about strategy, honor, and the importance of preparation. But the memory of what happened still haunted him. Marcus attended every memorial ceremony at Karis 7, speaking with families of the fallen. He made sure they knew their loved ones hadn't died in vain. The sacrifice at Karis 7 had saved humanity from extinction. The war crimes trials had concluded 3 months earlier. President Zal then and 247 council leaders were found guilty of conspiracy to commit genocide, war crimes, and crimes against sentient beings. The sentences were carefully chosen. Sarah had refused calls for execution. "We're not executioners," she had told the tribunal. "We're better than that." Instead, the guilty were imprisoned on an isolated colony world called Redemption. It was a harsh planet, barely habitable with no advanced technology. The prisoners were forced to build their own settlement, grow their own food, and survive through their own labor. Human guards watched over them, ensuring they lived but didn't escape. It was a punishment designed to make them understand what they had done. They had tried to destroy a species. Now they would spend their lives rebuilding, reflecting, and facing the consequences of their actions. Zhao then himself had aged badly in prison. His scales were dull, his movements slow. He spent his days in the colony's library, reading about human history. He was trying to understand how he had so badly underestimated humanity. "We thought you were primitives," he said once during a routine interview. "We saw your short lifespans, your aggressive nature, your rapid expansion. We feared what you would become. So we tried to stop you before you became unstoppable." The interviewer, a human journalist named Maria Santos, asked the obvious question, "Do you regret it?" Zhao then was silent for a long time. "I regret underestimating you. I regret the dishonor of betrayal. I regret that my fear made me a monster." He looked directly at the camera. "But I still fear what humanity will become. You've proven you can be ruthless when threatened. What happens when you decide you're threatened by everyone?" It was a fair question, and Sarah thought about it often. Humanity now commanded the strongest military in known space. They controlled the infrastructure that kept civilization running. They had the technology, the numbers, and the will to dominate the galaxy. But they had chosen a different path. The Terran Accord guaranteed autonomy for member species. Human forces protected trade routes and defended against external threats. But they didn't conquer or subjugate. Sarah had made it clear from the beginning that humanity sought partners, not subjects. Not everyone believed her. Some species remained wary of human power. They joined the Accord but kept their defenses ready just in case. Sarah understood. Trust had to be earned, especially after what the Council had done. The three species that had been innocent of the conspiracy, the Thelis, Porvin, and Kektar, became humanity's closest allies. They had risked everything by opposing the Council's plans, and they had been proven right. Now they held positions of honor in the Accord, their voices carrying weight in all decisions. Other former Council species petitioned for admission to the Accord. The process was careful and deliberate. Each species had to acknowledge the Council's crimes, pay reparations to humanity, and commit to the Accord's principles of transparency and equality. Some were accepted. Others were told to wait, to prove their sincerity. The Yevon, who had suggested biological warfare against humans, were denied membership. They had shown too much eagerness for genocide. The Accord wasn't ready to trust them yet, maybe in a generation or two after they had truly changed their culture. The Thelosian people, despite their leaders' crimes, were accepted into the Accord. The Thelosian population had overthrown their government after learning about the conspiracy. They held free elections, established democratic reforms, and invited human observers to ensure fairness. It was a remarkable transformation. "We were ashamed," the new Thelosian premier told Sarah during the admission ceremony. "Our leaders committed monstrous acts in our name. We want to make it right. We want to be worthy of your trust." Sarah shook her hand. "Trust is earned through actions, not words. Show us who you want to be and we'll believe you." The Vrix Empire had been the biggest surprise. After their devastating defeat in the Prometheus Nebula, the surviving Vrix had expected annihilation. Human ships could have followed them home and destroyed their civilization. Instead, humanity offered peace. The treaty was harsh but fair. The Vrix had to withdraw from disputed territories, pay reparations, and accept monitoring of their military. But they weren't destroyed. They weren't enslaved. They were given a chance to change. Vrix culture was built around strength and respect for power. They had viewed humans as weak prey. Now they saw humans as apex predators, the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Paradoxically, this made the Vrix respect humanity more than they had ever respected the Council. "You defeated us completely," the new Vrix commander told Marcus during treaty negotiations. "You could have exterminated us. Instead, you offered terms. That is true strength. That is worthy of respect." The Vrix requested a non-aggression pact with humanity. They didn't want membership in the Accord, but they wanted humanity's recognition as fellow warriors. Marcus, who had fought them at Kara 7 and destroyed their fleet in the nebula, understood their mindset. "We'll accept the pact," he told them, "but understand this. If you ever betray us, if you ever attack human worlds or our allies, there will be no mercy. We'll remember what you did at Keras 7. We understand, the Vrix commander replied. We will remember what you did in the nebula. We have no desire to face human warriors again. It was a strange peace built on mutual respect born from violence, but it held. The Vrix became, if not friends, then at least predictable neighbors. They traded with human colonies, shared intelligence on threats from beyond their borders, and kept their word. Earth itself had transformed. The betrayal and war had unified humanity like nothing before. The old divisions of nation, religion, and ideology seemed petty compared to the threat of extinction. Earth's government became more centralized, more focused on the long-term survival of the species. Human colonies expanded rapidly. New worlds were settled, terraformed, and fortified. Humanity was making sure they could never be threatened with extinction again. If Earth fell, a dozen other worlds could carry on humanity's legacy. The technological leaps were extraordinary. With access to council archives and databases, human scientists made advances in decades that should have taken centuries. Faster ships, better weapons, more efficient power systems. Humanity was catching up to species that had been spacefaring for millennia. But the most important change was psychological. Humanity had learned hard lessons about trust, preparation, and the price of complacency. Every human child learned about the Keras 7 betrayal. They learned about Protocol Samson. They learned that peace was wonderful, but you had to be ready for war. Sarah's office in Accord headquarters received a visitor one afternoon. It was Dr. Rebecca Stone, the engineer who had designed Protocol Samson 15 years earlier. She was old now, her hair completely white, but her mind was still sharp. I hear they're teaching about my paranoia in schools now, Rebecca said with a slight smile. You saved humanity, Sarah replied. Your paranoia turned out to be wisdom. Rebecca sat down heavily. I'm glad it helped. But Sarah, you need to be careful. Protocol Samson gave us power, but power corrupts. Don't let humanity become what the Council feared we would be. What do you mean? The Council feared our aggression, our expansion, our potential to dominate. We proved them wrong by showing restraint. But how long will that last? Every generation that grows up learning about the betrayal will be more suspicious, more militaristic. Eventually, someone will decide that the best defense is conquest, and with the power we have now, we could do it. Sarah nodded slowly. It was something that kept her awake at night. So what do we do? Remember why we fought, Rebecca said. Thank you for watching.